The following feature presentation is part of the Skywalking Network.
This is what you can look forward to on episode 235 of Skywalking Through Neverland.
It would never have happened had my coach not said to me, yeah, I got you back. I believe it.
And this was for Return of the Jedi, right?
For, actually, my contract said Revenge of the Jedi.
Oh.
The reason why I survived 45 years in the film industry is because I learned a really important word, and that was no.
Who was funnier, Carrie Fisher or Chevy Chase?
Ooh.
There's a question.
We got a chance to work on E.T., and Steven Spielberg was extremely cautious of letting anyone see the character. I had to tell this really macho Italian guy that I was playing Minnie Mouse. Hey, boys and girls, this is Bobby Porter. I was an Ewok a long time ago. I did a lot of crazy things for Disney a long time ago, from Sheepdog to Dancer on Newsies to Apple Dumpling Gang, and now we are skywalking through Neverland.
Are you ready?
Off to Neverland!
Here we go!
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land.
When I first made Star Wars, everybody in Hollywood said, well, this is a movie Disney should have made.
You're more than just fans. You're family.
Best day ever!
Secrets love.
It's about family, and that's what's so powerful about it.
Hey.
When you use a bird to write with, it's called tweeting.
When we visit the world of Disney, we never grow old. It's a Peter Pan, Never Land that keeps us young in heart.
This is Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you are skywalking through Neverland. I have a good feeling about this.
Hey, Skywalkers! Hey, are you ready to hear some amazing behind-the-scenes stories about some of your favorite films and stars? If so, then we want to welcome you to Skywalking Through Neverland. We are your enthusiastic podcast destination for the many decades of your Star Wars, Disney, and Marvel fandom. I am Richard Woloski, your tour guide through the many decades of fandom. But everyone, please say hello to my sweetie wife, Sarah.
Hey, Skywalkers! Wow, is this our second episode of 2019?
It is. Going strong.
Oh my goodness. Well, Skywalkers, it's time to give you guys a big Wookiee hug. Because you are our Skywalking family and we love you. We want to thank you so much for listening to the show every single week. Welcome. If this is the first time you're listening to us, we want to welcome you to Skywalking Through Neverland. You are now a Skywalker. And also, we want to give a shout out to our face huggers who are watching live on Facebook right now. Woohoo! We love it when you share our joy in this adventure through fandom.
Now, we are recording this from Long Beach, California on January the 12th, 2019. And Sarah, what time is it on this rainy Saturday afternoon?
It's 10:59. Good morning.
Okay.
It's the morning.
It is the morning.
It's not the afternoon.
Well,
it may look like the afternoon.
Seeing how dark it is outside.
It is.
You would think it was the late afternoon. We don't get very many of these rainy Saturday...
rainy days at all.
Yeah, in Southern California.
No.
Except if you're talking about January, February, March, or April. Other than that, clear skies. Maybe some days in December can be rainy as well. Yes. Other than that, clear skies ahead. Now, Sarah, coming up on this episode, which we are so excited about, we're going to be talking with our good friend and actor and stuntman, Bobby Porter. Let that sink in for a few seconds. Now, he's been seen in everything from Battle for the Planet of the Apes, Newsies, he was in E.T., he was in Under the Rainbow with Carrie Fisher, and he had a part in the making of Revenge of the Jedi. Yes, you heard me right. Revenge.
Yes.
Now, we actually recorded this conversation over a year ago. and we've been waiting and waiting for a good time to air it. And now is the time. Bobby came by our house and we recorded a segment for the Talking Apes podcast. And since he had so many stories about Star Wars and Disney and a very heart-wrenching tale about Robin Williams, well, we recorded a separate segment for Skywalking Through Neverland. And we can't wait for you Skywalkers to hear this. So many great stories.
Yeah.
So many heart-wrenching stories too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I mean, Robin Williams, come on. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, also, because you Skywalkers asked for it, and we don't want to leave anyone hanging, we will complete our episode breakdown and review of the first half of Season 1 of Star Wars Resistance. Now, we're going to do this here on Skywalking Through Neverland instead of doing the spin-off Flyby show like we had been doing, just because we can't do 2 shows a week. So we'll be putting it on Skywalking Through Neverland.
So we'll be looking back at the Resistance episodes, Secrets and Holograms, and Station Theta Black, as well as the mid-season trailer that was just released.
So now, let's roll into our discussion with Bobby Porter.
Hang on to something.
Be our guest, put our podcast to the test. Gather round the microphone and we will do the rest.
Our next guest has worked with some of the best in the industry, from Wicket the Ewok, E.T., the Terminator, Herbie the Love Bug, and Caesar from Planet of the Apes. When you saw an Ewok tumble, an ape child fall out of a tree, or any number of stunts in film or TV in the last 35 years, most likely it was performed by Bobby Porter.
Bobby Porter can be seen in The Ewok Adventure, Battle for the Planet of the Apes, E.T., Blade Runner, Newsies, and the list goes on and on. So now, let's hear from this amazing man and his amazing but very dangerous career.
Hey, Bobby!
Hey, boys and girls, how you guys doing?
Well,
whoops!
knock over our iPad. We are that excited to talk to you that we're knocking over expensive machinery. That's how we start all of our discussions.
Yeah, right?
But like I was going to say, we are very excited to have you on because of your association with Star Wars, with Disney, and thousands, or how many films have you worked on?
Oh.
You know, I started my career in 1971, and I was the only professional stuntman who was consistently working under 5 foot tall. So I was really blessed. I got a chance to do a great number of films for 20th Century Fox. That's where I started my career. The young man that I was doing stunts for or with moved his career from Fox to Disney, and that just opened the floodgates. I did a consecutive 16 feature films for Disney from 73 to 1980. From there, we did a number of television series. A lot of what I did as an actor was in a costume. Robot, bear, dog, sheep, alien, you name it. If the costume fit, the guy who was 4'9" was the guy who got to do it. So I was very blessed, even if I didn't go to the prom.
Oh. Hey, but you know what?
You know what? I didn't go to the prom with a date either. It's all good.
But look what you got instead.
Exactly.
A 45-year film history. Is there a number of films that you have done? Films and TV?
It's difficult because I've had friends of mine check out IMDb, which most people do nowadays, and accost me with, "Oh yeah, you worked on my favorite film, Newsies, or Prancer, or any of a number of other films," and I've quite frankly forgotten some of the films I've worked on. You got to remember, in the early 70s up till like the mid 80s, stunt people didn't get credit on films. So a lot of the projects that I was involved in that would normally be on IMDb are not there simply because there's no evidence that any of us worked there. A ballpark figure would be probably around 250 feature films, sometimes for a few days, sometimes start to finish. First shot to last shot. Episodic television, dozens of films, dozens of projects, hundreds of episodes.
And your resume has huge blockbusters, so there's something there for everybody.
Yeah, there's a lot of them up there for nobody, too. I've been very blessed in that I was usually the guy that got called in whenever a child was on the film and was going to be involved in some form of risk. Sometimes minimal, sometimes tremendous. And up until about 14 years into my career, I didn't have any competition. And then came along my very dear friend, Larry Nicholas from Northern California. And he and I both became great competitors. And if I wasn't working on a film, he was. If he wasn't working on the film, I was. When I became a stunt coordinator, when I was 29 years old, I hired him as often as I could. And he's a great guy. And we now sit around and talk about the good old days.
A while ago, we had Eric Walker on the show from the Ewok Adventure, and he brought your name up.
Shame on him.
Wait a minute. Bobby Porter, he was Cornelius in Battle for the Planet of the Apes.
How do you remember these names? You're so good at that.
Because I'm a credits freak. I'll sit and watch movie credits until they kick me out of the theater.
Until the guy trying to clean up the popcorn tells you have to leave.
Yep,
exactly.
Yep.
And you weren't credited for the Ewok Adventure, unfortunately, but I want to hear all about that from what you remember.
Well, if we go back a little bit before that, the genesis of the whole connection to Star Wars, I was hired here with 3 other smaller actors to go to England when they were actually building and developing the Ewok costumes. The costumes were already in production. They were already on the set. So it wasn't like we had a creative input into the design or the look. But we were brought over there for, I'd like to think 2 reasons. One, we were going to be doing all the stunts in those costumes later on in the film, and we wanted to make sure that the costumes were built similar to the Henson philosophy, which was make sure the guy inside doesn't die.
And this was for Return of the Jedi, right?
For actually, my contract said Revenge of the Jedi.
Oh.
Do you still have that contract?
Somewhere. I can't find it. I know it's in the house somewhere. Anyway, it does say Revenge of the Jedi on there. We were there for a week, maybe week and a half. I left early because I was committed to another project, and the Ewok stunt sequences had got pushed back on return about a month or 2, and so the times conflicted. So I never got a chance to go up to Northern California and do all of the great Ewok work that my friends did. But I got to go to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and work with Richard Donner and Jackie Gleason and Richard Pryor as the stunt coordinator on a film called The Toy.
What do you give the kid who has everything?
Daddy said anything I wanted, anything in the store.
For Eric Bates, it was the only toy in his father's store
I know what I want.
that wasn't for sale.
Was I bad?
What you were gave a new meaning to the word bad.
He may even find himself a friend. Richard Pryor, Jackie Gleason, Ned Beatty, and Scott Schwartz in a Richard Donner film, The Toy.
And that opened a great door for me because I was no longer just the stunt guy following orders. I was the creative input. I was the stunt coordinator.
Yeah.
And Richard and I got to work together on how the comedic action sequences were going to be, fashioned. And it was a great step for a guy. Back in those days, a 29-year-old stunt coordinator was rare. Most of the stunt coordinators were in their late 30s, early 40s. Mm-hmm. So it was a great opportunity, but I missed out on the back end of the Star Wars too.
Oh, that's horrible. But did you work on the Wonder Wheel scene from The Toy?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
That's where Richard Pryor's in that giant wheel, that rolls around the store, knocking over displays and mannequins. And...
Yep. And Richard was a genius, and he was so humble and so giving and so trusting. It was a real joy to work with him. He was a controversial character, to say the least. But with respect to his relationship to me, couldn't have asked for better. Couldn't have asked for more. He was just a great, great guy to work with.
We'll get back to Return of the Jedi in a second.
Yeah.
But on The Toy, were you the stunt double for Scott Schwartz,
yes,
the little boy?
Yes, I was. Usually what it meant when I became a coordinator was there was a child on the film as well. So I would do 2 for 1. I would double the lead actor and then also be the stunt coordinator. That happened actually on a TV series called Land of the Lost, for all of the real geeks out there. I played Stink, who was the 1990 version of the Pakuni from way back when. I was the stunt coordinator on that television series. I was the character Stink, which is one of the top 5 characters, the recurring, the principal cast. And I wrote one of the episodes.
Wow.
So I got to wear 3 hats on that show. It was a lot of fun.
And that episode was with Ron Harper from Planet of the Apes, who you've also worked with.
Wow. You are impressive. You are truly impressive.
I do my homework and I stay for the credits.
So do we.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, you've worked on so many films that whenever you tell a story, there's always like 3 or 4 sub-stories.
Oh,
We want to talk about those films as well, but let's get back to Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
Revenge of the Jedi.
Okay.
Now, did they fly you, did you say, over to Elm Street Studios in England?
Yes.
To test the costumes?
We were there basically for they wanted our input to see if what we were going to have to do physically were capable of being done in those costumes. So we wore the costumes. We offered a couple little tweaks here and there. The stunt coordinator was an American stunt coordinator. He brought us over knowing that we would be the 4 principal Ewoks doing the 4 major stunts. Or if something really big had to happen, they wanted one of the 4 of us there to make sure that we had time to prepare and set up the costume so that it would be safe to do so. He didn't expect me to leave early. So, oopsie.
Did you work with Stuart Freeborn over there? The makeup artist, who fabricated all these suits?
Yeah, I'm sure we crossed paths. I'm sure we were in the same room at the same time.
So you got to try them on?
Yeah.
Like the Ewok outfits? And how were they?
It was fun. They were very well built. I think that there was some sort of a Henson mystique to it because they did that same approach, knowing that the people in the suit have to be at least comfortable enough to sustain a very long day in a very heavy, very awkward costume. Okay. Most big costumes like that, the 3 elements that people tend to overlook with makeup effects, certain shops think from the outside in. These people were thinking from the inside out, and they overlook the ability to breathe.
Yes.
Which seems really ridiculous to say, but what happens is in a costume where you're constantly rebreathing your own air, you're basically breathing carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
You're not allowing for fresh air to come in, and that's when actors pass out, just because you're not getting any fresh air, or when you get lightheaded. Seeing is critical. Many of the costumes that I've worn over the years, and I've worn more than probably anybody else, you can't see where you're going. You have absolutely limited or zero vision. Hearing, because if you have servos and rotors and all the other animatronics going around in your head, all you hear is zzz, 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 and you can't hear the director say, "Run! Run, you stupid!" My friend Larry, who I mentioned earlier, we were on a movie where it was aliens and creatures, and he was playing the alien doctor, I was playing the alien soldier, and we were leaving the room because it was about to get blown up, and we trip over our costumes, and we fall flat on our face, and he's right next to me, and I'm right next to him, and I can't see him, but I can hear him, and they're ready to push the button that's going to blow this whole set up. And the director is screaming from some ungodly location, "Get up, get up, get up." And we're like 2 turtles on our backs. We can't get up. We are stuck there. And he started to laugh, and I started to laugh. And for the next 4 minutes, we are literally losing it. And there's no way in the world we're ever going to move from this spot until 4 guys come in and pick us up. But that's what costume work is. And that's why they sent it to Ewok Land, is because they wanted to make sure that stunts are dangerous. That's why they call them stunts. And they wanted to make sure that we were eliminating as many controllable variables as possible.
Mm.
Did the Ewok suits change from what you had seen back in, 82? To what you saw on the screen in 83?
Not really. Not much. No. The Ewok adventure was a kind of an afterthought. I mean, they realized they had a very successful franchise by then. And it was a way for them to put something on the air that people would watch for the holidays. And it was a great opportunity for me to kind of fulfill the obligation from the previous one.
Right.
So you knew what the Ewoks looked like before everyone else. Which they tried so hard to hide from the public on merchandising and action figures. Sure. They didn't want anyone to know until you saw them on the screen, which didn't work out because they had one of the Topps trading cards and a couple of T-shirts came out.
Well, it was much easier to hide a storyline or a gimmick or a concept back then than there is now.
Right.
Because everybody on the set has a cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
And a cell phone has a camera.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to be able to hide much, because I know we got a chance to work on E.T., and Steven Spielberg was extremely cautious of letting anyone see the character.
Oh, wow.
But it was difficult because we were shooting in Los Angeles in the San Fernando Valley, and when they did the scene where the kids are being chased around and he's sitting in the basket on the bike, people whose neighborhoods we were shooting in would see this alien go flying by. So, but back then, it wasn't like it is today. There were no cell phones. There was no quick opportunity to grab that picture because they saw this character go by, and nobody really thought to do so because nobody thought it was supposed to be secret.
Right.
So times have changed.
Well, on E.T., you mentioned E.T. So you were obviously in the bike scene.
I did some of it.
Okay.
I didn't do much of it because, quite frankly, and I'll be honest with you, the people who were riding the bikes for the bulk of that sequence were far more talented bike riders than I was. Okay. The reason why I survived 45 years in the film industry is because I learned a really important word, and that was no. And because I was 4'9", I was the only one. If they were going to do a stunt sequence in whatever film I was in, Disney film, whatever, if they were doing something that I felt really uncomfortable about, if it was something that I would wake up in the middle of the night before we were going to do it, I would go to the stunt coordinator, or if I were the stunt coordinator or to the director, and say, I'm really feeling uncomfortable about this. Can we do it this way? You couldn't just say, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
You had to offer another option that was equally exciting, but hopefully avoiding the one little disaster that might have happened. I'm a buzzkill at a party.
But insurance companies love you.
I walk into a pool party and I go, no, don't jump off of that.
And State Farm is saying, we want this guy on our payroll.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I was raised, and that's the way good, competent stunt people should behave.
Were you a stunt coordinator or a stunt performer on E.T.?
I was a stunt performer.
Were you a stunt performer for Eliot?
Yes, I was. The one scene that I did have a lot to do with was when they were leaving the hospital, or the house, I guess, with the van that had the big tube dragging behind it, and they had the chase with the van, and the two guys in the van and the tube kind of get, road rash and burn, and the tube ends up breaking off. I was Eliot in the back of the van at that point. So that's kind of my little claim to fame for that show.
So what did you think when you saw the little E.T. puppet that was going to be used as the lead in the film? What did you think about that design?
It was brilliant. I love my memory serves me right. I can't remember names to save my life. I believe it was created by Carlo Rambaldi.
That's exactly right.
Wow. I haven't said his name aloud in like 30 years. God bless Carlo.
We just saw the puppet over at Industrial Light and Magic last weekend.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing.
Well, Carlo and I worked on another project, a couple of other projects, but he and I did a film called Cat's Eye, where he created the little character that terrorizes Drew Barrymore.
Oh, right, yeah.
And there was two of us, actually. Myself and Kevin Thompson played that particular character, the little alien creature. And I said, he's just a badass version of E.T. I mean, it was a very similar concept mechanically, but he just was like a really annoyed E.T. Yeah. So,
Kevin Thompson, who was also in Return of the Jedi and
yes,
the Ewok Adventure.
Kevin and I were two of the four that went to England.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Kevin and I have been friends for a long time.
Well, let's go back to Ewok Adventure, then we'll move on to your Disneyland experiences.
Sure.
But for the Ewok Adventure, do you recall what scenes you did or what character you played?
I'd love to say yes. And I could sit here and BS you and tell you, oh, I did this and I did. I don't have a clue.
Were you Weege? Were you Whittle?
I don't.
Were you Chukatruck?
Oh, I don't. I'm so sorry. I remembered Carlo Rambaldi. Cut me some slack here. Okay?
All right.
No, we were, in those days, especially that was television. So it was shot much faster than a feature film, which we've mentioned in previous podcasts. Just two different genres, two different mediums. And so...
two different budgets.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so if the stunt coordinator said, go get over there and go ride that thing that way. Okay, fine. Get over there and go fall off that tree. Okay, great. And we just did it quickly. And I probably played multiple characters. But to pin me down and say which ones, I don't know.
Yeah, they were shooting.
I'm sorry.
They were shooting out of order, probably mixing and matching the heads.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So it's hard to figure out.
And I will tell you that, I mean, with all due respect to Kevin, God bless him, and the others, of all the guys that were there, I was the one that was the full-time professional stuntman. Okay. The rest of the guys had done a lot of stunts, but their anatomy didn't allow them to do the same kinds of things that I was capable of doing.
Okay.
That's no disrespect to their talents because they're all very talented people, but they had certain physical limitations that I didn't have.
Oh, great.
I'm going to get a letter from Kevin.
Good for you.
That's good. We also did Under the Rainbow together.
More on that
I was the good-looking one. I was the one in the tuxedo with the puppet. Yeah.
The ventriloquist.
Nice.
The ventriloquist.
Oh, funny.
Yeah. I was the tall one. Of all the little people there, whenever the producers walked by, I would just kind of crouch down a little bit going, no, I'm not too tall. I'm not too tall.
Yeah, you're funny. Wow.
All right.
It's a lot easier to crouch down than try to make yourself taller, I suppose.
My friend and I were running through the woods a couple of years ago, and 2 girls saw a mountain lion. It's a true story. Now, we'd been running for 40-some years and had never encountered a mountain lion up close. And now the local infomercial says, if you encounter a mountain lion, try to appear taller. There's 4 of us standing there. I'm the shortest one, and all 3 of them are walking backwards, and it's like the scene in Stripes where everybody walks backwards except me. Now, I'm the one closest to the mountain lion. I went, if I could have appeared taller, I would have gone to the prom. So now I'm jumping up and down, just being obnoxious like I can do quite well.
But then again, you had a 45-year film history.
And the mountain lion kind of walked away. It's
good.
I can't eat that. I'll get indigestion.
I was going back to all of his buddies. That was Cornelius from Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Show some respect.
Aldo couldn't kill him right away. Maybe I couldn't either.
Yeah, but an ape can take you. Okay. All
Well, now, have you ever worked at Disneyland?
Ooh, you know the answer to this already. Nice setup.
I'm just leading a question there.
You go, girl.
Yeah, I wonder if he has.
Let me think. My first job, if you discount the 3 days that I worked as a busboy, that didn't work well because everything I was supposed to take to the tables was on the top shelf. Didn't work well. But my first real job where I had a time card and a costume and a paycheck was this character at Disneyland. And my neighbor, who worked in the film industry, asked me about this new character that I was going to play. He said, who is it? And I said, well, I'd rather not tell you. And he says, oh, come on. I had to tell this really macho Italian guy that I was playing Minnie Mouse. And that wasn't so bad, except I had to go out and buy my own shoes. So now I had to go to the shoe store and tell this guy I had to buy Little Mary Jane tap shoes. It was okay. It was the 70s. It was a little early 70s. It was a different time, a different world. But I got a chance to work with Mickey at the beginning of the park, at the entrance to the park. We were the ones who introduced everybody to Disneyland. It was a really remarkable experience. And we made 0 money, but I got to work with a guy that was hired by Walt Disney himself.
Wow.
His name was Paul Castle, and God bless him. He was able to talk at the time. They let Mickey talk.
Whoa.
Wow.
Hey, little girl, come over here. We'll take a picture, and it was just really fun. It was really fun. And I was Minnie, and whenever he would get fresh, I'd have to slap Mickey because he was going too far, I mean, it was a different world. It was a different time. But it
As
was...
Minnie Mouse, could you talk?
No, only Mickey and some of the girls who were princesses who didn't have heads.
Right.
They were allowed to talk.
Okay.
And I believe once in a while, if you could do the voice, if it was a special occasion, they would let Donald talk.
Oh, that's a hard one.
Don't expect me to try to do Donald now.
No.
Well, if he could talk as Minnie, then he could tell everyone what time it was.
Yeah, there you go. But I grew up in the era of It's a Wonderful, Disney, what wonderful world of Disney. So to work there, especially if you lived in the area, if you lived in Orange County, that was like the dream job. That was really, really fun. And one of the things that we got to do is, before Make-A-Wish Foundation existed, Disney, the Disney Corporation, God bless them, had a program at Disneyland where if a child requested to come to Disneyland as their last request, it would be honored. And we would go to where we would get dressed in the morning. And because sometimes I was Minnie, sometimes I was Donald, sometimes I was Mickey, sometimes I was Mowgli. That lasted about 2 days. They would say, Bobby, Minnie, VIP. And the VIP wasn't some corporate executive or some politician. It was a child who wanted to see Disneyland. And we would, en masse, every single character that was working that day would come to the front gate and meet this child and their family and the entourage and whoever else and make them feel like this was their day, because it was. And there were many, many times where I was in the costume crying my eyes out, working for $2 an hour, but it was so worth it.
Right.
It was years before Make-A-Wish.
Oh.
So God bless Disney for doing that.
I was crying right now.
I know. tears coming my eye. I should pause this for a second. All right, from a tear-jerking story to some fun, happy stories now.
Yes.
So let's go over a couple of your films, and you give us a fun or memorable story from that movie. All right? Let's start with Sarah.
Newsies.
Newsies.
Now comes Disney's newest movie musical, Newsies. It's the story of newsboys
Paper, mister?
making a living on the streets.
Dear me.
You gotta join us.
Right!
And we'll be unstoppable.
This spring, get ready for adventure. Get ready for excitement.
Wait till I get you back to the refuge!
Get ready for pure Disney fun. It's an all-new entertainment event featuring 7 new songs from the Academy Award-winning composer of The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast.
The biggest, noisiest blowout this town's ever seen.
And you're invited to come along. Newsies.
I can't dance to save my life, but I got to dance and be paid for it. How cool was that? And do stunts, too. Yeah, it was a great combination. The director was brilliant, and we got a chance to incorporate music and stunts in the same scene. And that was pretty unusual. So that was really, really fun.
Would they play music like during the scene?
Yeah, there'd be playback.
Oh, okay.
There'd be playback so that you could actually stay in time and everybody was on the same beat, hopefully.
That makes sense.
But, we would be sliding from one building to another while people were dancing below us. And we, as regular stunt guys, were just looking at all these guys going, dang, those guys are talented. Now,
the dancers,
in our own right, we were talented too in our world, but we were more impressed with how good the dancers were. And we had completely forgotten that we were out doing really crazy, stupid stuff all over the buildings.
That's amazing.
Do you recall what scenes you were in? Did you work with Christian Bale?
Probably over the course of the show, they just kind of threw us in whenever there was a big dance number where it was a big, epic, Warner Brothers lot where guys were jumping from building to building or sliding down a banister or doing something. You have to watch the film to see, where if it looks like it was something a little beyond what a dancer would do, it was probably us.
Awesome.
So Kenny Ortega, who directed the film, did he give you dance lessons to the stunt guys?
That would have been a waste of time.
But it would have been something great for your resume.
Well, yeah, it would have been. We had to be in timing. We had to choreograph our performance to. There was a set of numbers that were going on, and we couldn't just say action and slide down the building. We had to go on a certain beat in the song. So it was a little different than what we would typically do as stunt people. We weren't in control. We were kind of just a piece of the moving puzzle in the background. It was really fun.
Nice. Well, that's so exciting to hear about.
Yeah, it was a good film, too. I really enjoyed the film.
Yeah.
I mean, for all the moving parts, it was really a decent story.
Yeah, and great music.
Yeah.
Yay.
All right, how about a film that is very special to me, a movie I really love, 1981's Under the Rainbow with Carrie Fisher.
Wow.
Guess what happened when 150 midgets checked into a hotel in Hollywood to make one of the world's biggest movies? It's not short on danger.
I could have held the elevator, sir.
And it's not short on romance.
Bruce Thorpe, United States Secret Service. Okay.
And I suppose that's your gun, huh?
If you haven't already guessed, it'll be out shortly. Chevy Chase, Carrie Fisher, and 150 of Hollywood's smallest stars in Under the Rainbow, a giant comedy.
We're all ears.
Yes.
All right, well.
I love this movie.
It was interesting because I had just come from a film called On Golden Pond, entirely different kind of film, with Henry Fonda and Katharine Hepburn, Jane Fonda. And the interesting professional timing was the actors were on strike. There were no actors working anywhere in Hollywood except the cast of On Golden Pond. And I got a phone call at 8 o'clock on a Sunday night, and they said, you need to come out to New Hampshire as quickly as possible. And I was supposed to be there for a couple of days, do the scene where we crash the boat and Henry Fonda falls in the water, and it's a really dramatic end of the movie. But the actors are on strike, and we were wondering how it was that we were able to continue to work. Well, this production company went to the actors and went to the producers and said, let's make this happen, because we have 2 very old actors, and we want to make sure this happens now. Well, as soon as we finished that, while I was still on that project, I was supposed to be there for 3 days. I was there for 6 weeks.
Wow.
There was another wonderful, wonderful stunt coordinator named Henry Wills, old-timer, cowboy, great, great man. Called me up and said, I need you to help me with helping these other little people, and we'd hired 150 of them, to be acrobatic and athletic and do some crazy circus kind of things on this movie called Under the Rainbow. And I said, all right, well, okay. And I figured I'd be there. Again, the actors' strike hasn't been resolved. Now they're thinking about doing a huge movie with Carrie and all the other ancillary characters. And I thought, well, how are they going to pull this off? Well, somehow they did. And as it turned out, I got there as sort of an assistant stunt coordinator to Henry. I was helping all the little guys learn how to do things that they weren't familiar with. And once they started shooting, a week into production, the director came to me and said, well, there's a character who we developed, and the actor we had in mind to play that part was injured, and he's not available. Would you like to play the ventriloquist? And I went,
woohoo.
Yeah, okay. I figured another couple days' work here and there. I was on the film for 6 months.
Whoa.
Now, from a production standpoint, it was wonderful because I'd already been hired by the stunt coordinator to do all the stunts in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm playing my own part. And I was on this show where we would work maybe 2 days a week. And we had 150 little people, of which maybe 7 had ever seen a film set.
Wow.
So they were from all walks of life and different parts of the world. And it was entirely a party. It was a party. Now,
wow.
I won't go into any details as to how broad and elaborate the party was, but it was quite the party. And you should answer your phone.
It's Chevy Chase saying, hey,
yeah,
would it hurt to kill me? Okay, I was in the film too. Would it kill you to mention me?
All right, Chevy. Yeah, Chevy Chase was wonderful. I mean, everybody in the cast was wonderful. It was just, they were making it up as they go. It was basically a story about their version of what might have happened in the making of The Wizard of Oz.
Mm.
In truth, when they brought all the little people together to play the Munchkins in The Wizard of Oz, it was very similar in that many of these people had never worked on a film before, and now they're Munchkins. And I'm sure the parties were not as elaborate, maybe back then, but there were a lot of things going on back then that probably the local publicist wouldn't want to talk about.
Did you ever work with Carrie Fisher?
I did. Yeah, we had a couple scenes together, and she was wonderful, and she was very sweet and just fun-loving and willing to kind of work with whatever little people she had in front of her. And a lot of them, again, were fairly new to the business. So she was, patient and funny, and her and Chevy both. I mean, how can you not? We laughed all day long. I mean, it was one of those sets where you just knew it was going to be good because it was a crazy situation that we were in. It was something that was unique and different. Nobody had ever done this in 50 years since Wizard of Oz. And so, yeah, there was a lot of really funny moments.
Wow.
I don't think I'd ever laughed that hard on a film set. I think the second time I ever laughed that hard was probably all the stuff we did on Malcolm in the Middle.
Right.
Which was a daily laugh fest.
Oh.
Who was funnier, Carrie Fisher or Chevy Chase?
Ooh.
There's a question.
Carrie was the better actress. Chevy was the better comedian.
Oh, that's saying something because Carrie is really funny.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. But I think, again, too, you have to remember, a lot of it is what words they have in front of them and however the character is developed. I mean, Chevy's character was hysterical. I think the funniest scene we ever remembered from that show was the elevator crashing down. And I believe it was Tony Cox. There was an elevator operator, tall, good-looking, older African-American fellow, and the elevator cables are cut. And then you hear the crashing sound of it going to the bottom floor. And then the doors open up, and out walks Tony Cox, who is a very good-looking African-American fellow who's about 3'5". But he's in the other guy's clothing.
Yes.
So the joke was that he just lost 2 feet of height.
That one really amazed me as a kid because the two actors are so similar.
Yeah.
That I couldn't figure out how they did this effect.
Yeah, and one of the little people actually had to do a stair fall. He was supposedly had had too much to drink.
The drunk guy, yeah.
Yeah. And he did this stair fall down the big spiral staircase. It's a big curved circular staircase. And it was like watching it in slow motion because he was a little person and they're built a little differently. But every single step he hit was like, and we couldn't stop laughing.
Oh.
It was an amazing. Yeah.
Any other stories about Carrie Fisher you could share? Under the Rainbow?
We'll leave it there.
Okay.
Yeah, Carrie had some issues. I think most people knew.
Okay.
And I'd like to keep my interviews upbeat and not talk about people's weaknesses or fallacies or faults. So we'll leave it at that.
Okay. Well, you know what? One of the people that you've worked with and you've mentioned before is Robin Williams. And so I'd love to hear anything about that, specifically like Jumanji. I know you worked with him.
I don't know if we have enough time.
We'll make time.
I'm really honored to say that I've worked with Robin 4 times, 4 different projects. And there are countless numbers of people that I've worked with over the last 45 years that deserve tremendous respect and admiration and will always have a soft spot in my heart for. But he's right up there. If he's not number 1, he's number 1. I can't think of anybody else. Clint Eastwood and Michael Landon were both remarkable human beings, but Robin was, on top of that, an absolute genius. And I know we use the word readily and frequently and maybe overuse it, but the man was a creative, comedic genius. I saw him, I'd sit on the set after he was off camera and watch him do a 30-minute monologue because a grip dropped his hammer. And that would be the opening line for a 30-minute monologue about clumsiness. And it wasn't mean-spirited. It wasn't trying to embarrass the grip. It was what would trigger him into this incredibly gifted, creative story. And beyond the talent that he had, there was a little story on Jumanji that I've told, I think, before, but I'll tell it again because it's worth repeating. We shot in New Hampshire in the beginning of the film. And there were a number of people from the little town that we were in who were trying to watch what we were filming. And we were in the middle of the town. And the people were 8 deep.
Wow.
And there was a little girl and her mother in the back of this mass of people. And she was in a wheelchair, maybe 9 years old, 8 or 9 years old. And Robin wouldn't leave the set unless he was absolutely dragged from the set. He just wanted to sit there and entertain the crew and just be a part of the gang and help out where he could. And he had to leave this one time to go change a wardrobe. It was a different scene, different wardrobe, and so he had to leave. On his way back, the production assistant, the individual who was assigned to kind of escort him through the crowd, they were working their way through the back, and Robin saw this little girl and her mother. And he kind of knelt down from behind her. She didn't know he was there. And he was at her eye level, and he was looking around, and he said, "This is the ugliest view of anybody in this town."
Oh.
And the little girl says, "Yeah, I know." And she didn't know who she was talking to at first. She turned and looked at him and just lost it. It's Mrs. Doubtfire. It's like her hero, right? And he said to her mom, "I think I know somebody who can get you a better seat." He says, let me work on that. And he just looked at the production assistant and he said, and he didn't make a big deal out of it. It wasn't loud. It was very quiet because he didn't want the rest of the crowd to go ooh and ah, and what a great man. They just parted the crowd, and Robin and the production assistant and the mother and the little girl in the wheelchair went up to where he was sitting in the middle of the set, and he looked over at her and said, "They tell me when I can go home, but you can go home whenever you want to.
Oh.
Or you can stay as long as you want to." And he treated her like part of the crew. He didn't talk down to her. He didn't patronize her. It was remarkable. And about 2 weeks later, we were now shooting in Vancouver in British Columbia. And I heard from a friend of mine that I'd made in New Hampshire that this little girl and her family had received a box, totally unexpected. And in the box was every single Mrs. Doubtfire piece of memorabilia you could come up with.
Aww.
Crew jacket, crew t-shirt, a signed script, pictures, you name it,
Wow.
posters, anything that he could find or get his hand on that was Mrs. Doubtfire. was all there waiting for her. And she never, ever expected it, never asked for it. It was never promised. He just knew that that was her favorite movie, and he just went over and beyond. My son and I raise a lot of money for, not as much as we'd like, but we support a great program called the Challenged Athletes Foundation. And I'm varying a little bit, but they deserve a plug.
Oh, yeah.
They're an organization that provides prosthetic arms and legs for athletes as young as 3, as old as 70 or older, so that they can be athletes. And we raise money for this young boy in particular named Zach. And Zach is going to get his first running legs here in a few weeks. The largest supporter of that organization that was created by a friend of mine 25 years ago was Robin Williams. When Robin's family realized how dear and near to his heart this organization was, they took his bicycle collection, which was enormous. I mean, just really random, crazy, one-of-a-kind bicycles, and donated all of them in an auction to Challenged Athletes Foundation. And I wanted to buy one of the bikes. The lowest bid on any one of the bikes was like $5,000.
Wow.
It was crazy. But that's the kind of person that Robin was. I took too long to talk about him, but I could spend hours talking about that.
No, we love that. I mean, that story is just amazing.
He's always going to be remembered very fondly, and I miss him dearly.
Yeah.
A world of wonder.
Wow, they're beautiful.
A world of excitement. A world of adventure.
Don't look back!
It's the world of Jumanji. A fantastic adventure. You've never seen anything like this on screen.
You wrestled an alligator for me.
Robin Williams, Jumanji, rated PG, at theaters December 15th.
All right, now tell us about Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
Terminator 2, that was one of the films where we knew we were doing a big film. Sometimes when you work on a film, you don't realize how big it's going to be until after it's come out. We knew going in this was going to be a big film. Jim Cameron was of the mindset, go big or go home. Every single scene had 5 cameras rolling on it. That was unique. The stunts were something that nobody had ever seen before. The scope, the magnitude of every single sequence in the film was way above anything anybody else had ever seen.
Were you a stunt coordinator on this?
No, I was not. I was the stunt double for John Connor.
Okay.
And there were 2 stunt doubles for John Connor. I was the better looking one. Doc Charbonneau was the better rider.
Okay.
Doc was a great motorcycle rider, and he did all the second unit stuff. I did all the stuff where I had to be close to camera. So I got to do all the money shots. Sorry, Doc. But it was a great experience. And I lost a lot of sleep over that because I was really pushing my own personal limits and my own abilities physically as a writer. It was testing how far I could go. And, you know, being a single father with 2 small children at home, it was stressful. Definitely stressful. But it turned out pretty darn good.
And you did the scene where the T-1000 is chasing you and Schwarzenegger through the LA ravines.
Well, it starts with him chasing me first, and then there's a sequence where Arnold, you know, T2, catches up to the boy, and then he grabs him and pulls him onto the other bike, and then the sequence continues. No, the transfer was actually Doc. Now, if you watch this film, and this is a little bit of a sore spot for Mr. Cameron, is that because he was so intimate with all the sequences, he knew it was me. He could tell it was me. And he called me out on it. And I said, I'm going to do the best I can to avoid being recognized. But I've got to be able to see where I'm going. It was a very slippery, very difficult area that we were riding in. So he kept telling me, I can tell it's you, I can tell it's you, I can tell it's you. And I said, I'll do the best I can. Well, about a year later, we go to the screening. And I've told the story before. So for anybody who's listened to me anywhere else, please forgive the repetition. But my son was sitting next to me. Now, I had invited my son's Boy Scout troop to the set because Arnold Schwarzenegger said that he would love having the kids there and they had a great time. And he was very warm and, you know, very accommodating. And the kids got to see him get all shot up with all the squibs and everything. It was wonderful. So then my son and I went to the screening of the cast and crew screening, and I happened to be sitting behind Jim Cameron and Linda Hamilton and Robert Patrick. Well, as the sequence rolls, my son is tapping me on the shoulder. What? doesn't play very well on the internet, but you get the idea. He gets my attention, and I go, what? And he goes, Dad, that was you. Well, this is Jim Cameron's look at me as he hears my son say that. In the middle of all this explosion, he just turns and looks over his shoulder and looks at me like, gotcha. And yeah, it was one of those moments. But
yeah, being a perfectionist, I'm surprised you let a moment like that with no one else would notice but he and your son.
Well, my only response was, it's my son.
Yeah.
Right. Of course he knows it's me.
Yeah.
So, it was funny. I mean, it was difficult, but yeah, it was I'm proud to have been a part of that. Because I think that chase sequence has been written up as one of the most professional, exciting stunt car chase scenes ever photographed. So
Nice.
to be a part of something like that is pretty historic.
I recall seeing that in 91 and just being so blown away at the sequence because it just kept on going.
Well, it was all real too.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to understand the only thing that was CGI in that entire sequence was the T-1000 going through the melting process. And
Yeah.
we had never seen that. We didn't see it as a cast or crew until the screening because ILM had done all that in their magic little house up north. And we saw it for the first time at the screening and we went, oh my God, that was amazing. We were as excited about that because that was the first time you ever saw that technology.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the whole
And
morphing thing.
everything else, the fire, the falling, the truck coming off the bridge, we did that for real. I was sitting on that motorcycle maybe 100 feet in front of that truck when it came off the bridge, and there was nobody in that truck. It was going to go wherever it wanted to go, and it was going after me. And as soon as I grabbed the gear and tried to get out of the way, it's slippery. The first 5 or 10 feet that I'm leaving, the rear tire is just spinning. I'm not going anywhere. But the truck is still coming.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Now, in today's world, we would never do that.
No.
They would shoot the truck coming off.
Mm-hmm.
They would shoot the kid in the front, and he would drive away, and they would marry the two digitally.
Mm-hmm.
We did that for real. So anybody who was born after 1990 who doesn't understand the difference between digital stunts and real stunts, that's the perfect example of that.
Or just showing them that one shot of the cab coming off of the bridge into the ravine.
Yeah.
And there's John Connor and the Terminator not that far away.
No.
Mind-blowing to see that on a big screen.
Yeah, I still, as an old stunt guy who's seen better days, who's just kind of like that sandcastle getting washed away by high tide, there are still a few nightmares that I have. And they're not specific to any one particular movie, but they're sort of a compilation of all the things that went well when I was working, and now they don't go so well.
Right.
So it's all that what if, oh my God, we dodged a bullet, we were lucky that time. And now I'm having those dreams of all those things that could have gone wrong, kind of going wrong. It's not really fair at this age to wake up in the middle of the night and be afraid of a job that I did 30 years ago.
Wow.
But that's post-traumatic stress. Maybe there's some money in it for me. Yeah. I'm kidding.
There's this
I'm
support
totally kidding.
group for
for crazy old stuntmen who were
stunt
still
performers.
fussing over jobs that went really well 30 years ago. So get over yourself. Yeah.
Wow.
Back in 1973, I fell out of a tree. This gorilla was chasing me.
Yeah. Yeah. And
His name was Aldo.
And who knew that would lead to all of this?
Yeah.
Okay, anyway.
You never know.
Speaking of nightmares, you played another iconic character.
Nice.
Do you see where I'm coming with
Nice
this?
segue.
I'm king of the segues, and that is Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
Tell us about working as Freddy Krueger.
Yeah. I think that was number 5.
Number 5, Dream Child.
Yeah. There's a dream sequence where Freddy Krueger is a young child, not entirely unlike the Batman movie that I did where I played Batman as a young child. You see how I threw that in there?
Yes, nice.
And he has this explosion where he's on this altar and there's this giant stained glass window that he is blown through. It was a big stunt. I mean, it was a lot of fun. But I was Freddy Krueger. I mean, I was more enamored with the fact that I was actually in the costume of a guy whose franchise was off and running.
Big time. Oh,
and now we get to do a cool stunt. And now I can say, 30 years later, yeah, I was Freddy.
He was like the big thing in horror movies during that era.
Oh, yeah.
The 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Did you get to wear the horror sweater?
I did.
Oh.
I did.
Oh, my
And the
goodness.
mask and everything else.
Oh,
I mean, I was a little mini Freddy.
Wow.
So I did all the makeup and everything else, just like a little mini Freddy. Yeah, it was pretty darn cool.
Wow.
Wow. How does it feel being all these iconic characters?
You know, I was really, really lucky. I mean, when I was a child growing up, I never thought that being a foot and a half shorter than everybody else would have such a tremendous opportunity waiting for it. And there was a high school coach named Jack Hedges, Coach Hedges, who I asked if I could be on the cross-country team when I was a freshman. I was a tiny little guy, not an athlete. And he said, yeah. This is the fastest high school team in America. This is the number one team in America, not just any normal cross-country team. And he let me on the team. I knew I was never going to run with the big guys. I was never going to run varsity. But he did something he didn't even realize at the time. He gave me the self-confidence to do so many remarkable things. To ask the cute girl out, who became the mother of my children.
Oh.
There, Michelle. See, I still love you. Okay, that would never have happened had my coach not said to me, yeah, I got your back. I believe in you. And that led to going to the job interview that got me the job at Fox, that led to the Apes movie, that led to all the other things, to becoming a stuntman. None of those things would have happened had it not been for Coach Hedges.
Wow.
Oh, confidence will get you everywhere in life.
Well, that's the trailhead of my life. That's the seminal moment. And I told my coach that 40 years later to his face, along with 15 other guys who had not seen him in, some of them, nearly 50 years. We got together and met him a couple years before he passed away, and we all shared with him how all of our lives were better because of him. And to all of you who are athletes or dancers or artists, every one of you knows somebody who you owe something to. And if they're a teacher or a grandparent or a pastor or whoever it is who changed your life for the better, if you haven't spoken to them in the last 6 months, shame on you. Call them up. Text them, tweet them, send them a postcard. Let them know that you're a better person because of them, because it means a lot.
Yeah.
In this day of social media, there's no reason not to, or no avenue to not to do that.
Let me step away from that. It's better to send them a card because they're probably old enough that something in the mail is going to mean much more to them than a text or a tweet or a Facebook post.
Right. Well, or give them a phone call like
Thank you.
The way we did it in the old days.
I refer to social media as anti-social media. Okay?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more there.
Wow.
You know what? We never went over Jumanji and what you played in Jumanji.
I was the double for the boy. And then I was also going to, the initial concept was I was going to be the character that the boy turned into. When he lies and the game punishes him and turns him into like a little baboon character. The original concept was for me to play the character from that point on because it was a really intricate animatronic head that was glued to me.
Oof.
Imagine all the servos and technology of all the crazy characters you'd seen glued onto somebody's actual head. It was groundbreaking. It was something that had never been done before. But when the director saw it in its final stage, when we were in Canada, he giggled. He thought it had gone too far. That it was way past what we'd wanted because it looked very cartoon-like. So they went back and they did something with the boy that was a very simple Planet of the Apes type appliance.
Okay.
So I never got on camera as that character, but I got to double the boy doing some stunts in the film from place to place as well. So yeah, it was a moment that could have happened, but that's the other thing about Robin is that we spent 3 hours filming the scene that was scheduled for that day with this head on me that had been glued on since 2:00 in the morning. Because Robin was trying to save my job. Robin knew that if we couldn't convince the director and the producers that this would work, that I'd be on a plane the following day. And he said, we've already scheduled this. Let's just try it. Let's just do this scene. So it was he and I walking and talking and him gently chastising the boy for lying. And it was so wonderful for him to just sit there with me and go, that was awesome. Let's do it again. That was great. Let's try it this way. Let's try this. This time I'm going to do this and you do that. Yeah, go. Let's do it. It was just really heartfelt. And he didn't need to do that. He could have just gone to his trailer and said, tell me what we're doing next.
Right.
That wasn't him.
Jumanji! ready.
Ow. In production for Christmas, Jumanji.
Coming soon when the effects are ready. Until then, it's just me singing a song.
All right, so just one more.
As many as you guys are willing to put up with. Your fans have all turned off to go do some Star Trek convention by now. So, okay.
Whoa.
Yeah.
All right, so Bobby's going to leave now.
Yeah. I did nothing with Star Trek, just so you know. Nothing. Okay.
All right. Well, what we really want to know about, because we recently covered this in our other show, Step in Time, was Pete's Dragon.
Ooh, fun. The original Pete's Dragon.
The original
1977
Pete's
Pete's Dragon.
The original Pete's Dragon.
The one that gave us nightmares.
I, again, doubled the boy, but I got to ride Eliot.
Oh, wow.
The Magic Dragon, yes. Again, that was Disney doing groundbreaking stuff.
Yeah.
They had a process that was similar to green screen before green screen. It was called the sodium stage. And it was a different concept because they had one camera and one camera only that had actually 2 reels of film going through it. One was black and white and one was color. And there was a prism, a perfect triangular glass prism, one of a kind, that split what was in front of these 2 lenses equally into both sets of film. Okay? You follow me?
Yeah.
So whatever's in front of the camera is now being divided mechanically, not digitally, but mechanically, to a black and white roll of film and a colored roll of film. And all of that is being shot in front of the sodium screen, the world famous Disney sodium screen. It was bright orange.
Huh.
It was extraordinarily bright, which means everything in front of it had to be lit even brighter so that the background screen wouldn't blind everybody. It was a wonderful concept, and that's how Eliot was created. It wasn't digital, because there was no digital back then. We're talking mid-70s.
1977,
Right.
yeah.
And so when I was flying, or when the boy was flying on Eliot, we were sitting on wires.
Right.
High up on the stage. And they had some sort of mechanical little box underneath it that would support it. But the wires weren't digitally removed. They were so small, so thin, that they had to be lit in such a way that there was no light shining on these black wires.
Right.
It was
hard.
groundbreaking.
Yeah.
The man who created all of these wonderful concepts, all the way back from Mary Poppins and beyond, up until Pete's Dragon and past that, was a brilliant, brilliant man by the name of Art Vitarelli. And Art was the head of the special effects department at Disney. And he would ask anybody and everybody for opinions and ideas about how to do certain things.
Wow.
And then he would put his special little sauce on it and create flying nannies or flying Volkswagen Beetles.
Or tea parties on the ceiling.
Or tea parties on the ceiling. Or flying dragons. And that was all the genius of Art Vitarelli.
Nice.
I was a coach for his grandson years later.
Oh.
And I would tell his grandson how brilliant his grandpa was every single day.
Oh.
Coach for stunts?
Or for running.
No, coaching runners.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, the 2 wonderful people that I'm talking to who you can't see right now, they're both really accomplished, wonderful runners. So you should give them props. Anybody who runs, they've got a stack of medals in the other room that are very impressive. So there you go.
Oh.
There are people who have said that they've run the Disney races because they've been inspired by us.
Yeah.
There you go.
Posting all our pictures and stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, the Disney races are really well done. A little pricey.
Yeah.
Disney, a little pricey. But the bling that you get, the medals and all the festivities around it, you can't match it.
Right.
There's only one other race that I would say is far more meaningful to pure runners, and that's the Boston Marathon.
Oh.
Because it's Boston.
Boston's strong.
But we divert a little bit. But anyway, we'll get back on the trail.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's wrap it up with this one last question about your TV series Quark and how that relates to Star Wars. What is Quark?
You were paying attention at breakfast. Okay. We did a TV series that was brilliantly written by the world-renowned Buck Henry.
Oh.
And he directed the pilot. It was, again, something that was so new and so out there and so fresh that people were afraid of it, quite frankly. It was a satire on Star Trek.
When was this?
It was, I have to go back to how old my sons were at the time. Okay, my youngest is 39. It was 38 years ago.
Okay.
Because my youngest was just about to be born. 38 years ago. And we were a spacecraft that traveled through the galaxies picking up trash. We were the Intergalactic Sanitation Department. And Richard Benjamin was the captain of the ship, who was absolutely brilliant. Two very well-known twins, totally babes, one was real and one was a copy of her, and he never figured out which one was the copy and which one was the real one. Tim Thomerson played a transmute who was a 70s version of someone who I guess would be today considered transgender, because one minute he's female, the next minute he's male.
Oh.
But it was in a very comedic way. And I played the ship's robot. I played Andy.
Ah.
Andy was the robot that was literally put together with just spare parts. Big square box. And his one weakness was he had a huge crush on the ship's computer.
Oh.
And whenever nobody was looking, he was trying to get it on with the ship's computer. It was hysterical. It was absolutely hysterical. And we did the pilot, and it just sat there, and nobody picked it up. And then about a month later, this little movie came out that just took off, and everybody went to go see it multiple times. And Buck and the producers called all of us back up and said, well, on the success of this movie, we're going to do 8 episodes of Quark, because all of a sudden now there's this big push to do Star Trekky kind of stuff and science fiction kind of stuff. Well, that little movie was called Star Wars, the first one. Well, the original one.
The first one, but the fourth one.
I knew you were going to go there. The oldest one.
Well, let's just say
There you go.
that we've heard of this movie.
Yes.
I think you have, yeah. But because of the success of Star Wars, we did 8 episodes of Quark. And had it not been for the fact that the show was so unique and so different and had a terrible time slot, we would have been on the air for 6 or 7 years. I have no doubt. But it's available on DVD somewhere. It's hysterical. It's really campy. It's really shticky. It has some great character actors in it. And yeah, I was really proud of it because I did some really funny stuff on it.
Interspace operator, get me Perma 1 number 65906-1985. I'd like to speak to Mandy.
This is Mandy.
Hello, Mandy. This is Andy.
Hello, Andy. This is Mandy.
The crew's running around down on some planet. I wish you were here.
You don't need me. You have the Bettys.
Don't be jealous, Mandy. It's bad for your electrodes.
My electrodes are my business.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Do you mean it, Andy?
Yes, Betty.
Betty!
I have made a Freudian slip.
You need to check that out. Have you seen it, Richard?
I have not seen Quark.
Oh, we're going to have Quark now.
Yeah, and according to IMDb, it came out in 1977.
Yep.
So it was just, of course, riding off of Star Wars, and right before Star Trek hit again in 1979.
Correct.
With the motion picture.
Right.
So why you would figure any network would be chomping at the bit for anything resembling Star Wars?
You had to be in the mindset of network television in the late 70s. Anything too outside the norm was scary for them. And usually didn't last very long.
Too satire.
And you only didn't want to make fun of science fiction because people were taking it way too seriously. We didn't want to satirize it until way later, and now there's a new TV series on now that's doing exactly that.
Yeah.
So I think he may have, I would like to ask him someday, did you ever see Quark? Were you influenced in any way as a child by that show?
Seth MacFarlane is a huge science fiction, Star Wars, Star Trek fan.
Well, then he had to have seen
I'm sure
Quark.
the Orville is a spin-off or a reboot of Quark.
We'll refer to it as an homage.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we definitely have to do a movie night, knowing that you live so close.
Yeah.
And watch this series, because I've never heard of it, but I'm looking at the pictures right now, and I'm loving this.
It's campy. It's really totally way over the top camp. And yeah, it's hysterical.
You have Buck Henry and Richard Benjamin. Those aren't light hitters in the comedy world back in 77.
No. And, Buck was one of those really great guys who would just take a chance. He cast me in a really bad movie, but it was a really funny scene called The First Family.
1980, Bob Newhart.
Bob Newhart. Well, I was the senator from, of all places, I'm 4'9", Rhode Island. And there's a scene in the opening of the movie where the president is signing a bill, and any of the senators who have written the bill get the pen that the president has used to sign it. Well, Bob Newhart is surrounded by his entire cabinet, which is every great comedian that ever lived is in that room on the cast.
Wow.
Gilda Radner.
Oh, wow.
Blah, blah, blah. It just, the list goes on and on and on. And you couldn't imagine that film failing with that much talent around it. And he's signing the bill, and he goes, right, and to the esteemed senator from Rhode Island. And he looks around, all these guys in suits, and he sees me. And he hands the pen to me, and I go to reach for it, and then he goes...
It's like giant.
and lifts it up in the air, and he makes me jump.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States. Bob Newhart is the President.
Who didn't get the souvenir pen with a gold embossed presidential seal? Oh, the senator from Rhode Island.
I'm a distinguished old senator from Rhode Island. I got salt and pepper hair. I'm like 30 years old, but Buck took the time to make me look like a 60-year-old.
Yeah.
Nobody else would have done that. But that's Buck Henry. That's what he did. He let me play a man who was 30 years older than I really was for that one joke.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
I recall seeing First Family when it came out, and it was too political. I did not understand it, but I did understand that Rhode Island joke. Living in Boston at the time, Rhode Island was the punching
state.
bag because it was so small.
Yep.
You could walk from side to side in an afternoon.
And it's the first joke in the movie. So even if the movie sucked and you only watched the first 10 minutes of it, you saw the Rhode Island joke.
Funny.
That's the only thing I recall from that movie.
That's probably the best thing to recall from it.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, now before we wrap things up,
Sure.
Is there anything we should know about Bobby Porter?
I think we pretty much covered it all. I will tell everybody who's listening, thank you very much for being such loyal fans to whatever genre you might be into. I was blessed to have worked with some amazing people at Disney whose names you'll never know, people who weren't even in the credits. It's a wonderful profession if you're steadily employed. If you're not, it's a tough gig. And I was very, very fortunate to have been in the shadow of some really remarkable people. And I will be faithful and loyal to those who treated me with respect forever. And for all of you who have been so helpful in keeping the interest there, even if I never meet you or if I run across you at a Monsterpalooza or someplace, we are deeply indebted to you. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And once again, this is a dream come true for little Richard Woloski, who grew up with Planet of the Apes and saw little Cornelius up in a tree, and it was just fantastic. And now, having spent the afternoon with you is just beyond my wildest dreams. I know you don't do social media, so if anyone's got any questions or anything you want to say to Mr. Bobby Porter, just go ahead and email them to us, share@skywalkingthrough.neverland.com, or post any comments on Facebook or tweet at us at skywalkingpod.
And we'll make sure to share with Bobby. Thank you so much. Yay!
And we're
out.
Skywalking through Neverland.
Now, to hear even more great stories, go to the Talking Apes Bobby Porter episode from February 2018. And Bobby can be seen next in the Planet of the Apes documentary, Making Apes, the Artist Who Changed Film, about the makeup artist who revolutionized prosthetic makeup on the original 1968 Planet of the Apes film.
Wow.
And Making Apes also features interviews with Rick Baker and Guillermo del Toro, Eric Stonestreet from Modern Family, film critic Leonard Maltin, Greg Grunberg, Snap Wexley from The Force Awakens, and so many of the original Planet of the Apes makeup artists.
Now, when will this documentary be coming out?
It's going to be premiering at the Santa Barbara Film Festival in February.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And then it's going to have a Southern California screening a few weeks later on. And from there, distribution is up to them. But a really great film about the history of prosthetic Planet of the Apes makeup. There's been a lot of Planet of the Apes documentaries, but when it comes to the makeup, they give it like 5 minutes.
Oh.
So this is something that's really needs to be seen.
Okay, cool.
Kaz, the Resistance doesn't belong to me alone. I help guide it, but everyone can play a part in it, just like you are now.
The Resistance is fully formed, and they're expecting a massive attack to come eventually from the First Order.
General Leia doesn't have a lot of support, unfortunately. The Resistance is very small, so any evidence that she could find that the First Order is up to no good, she welcomes with all arms.
As you can see from the intel we gathered, the First Order is clearly making weapons.
Leia meant so much to me as a kid growing up. She's the reason I love Star Wars. And I think that just tackling that alone was a pretty big task. And it was a good challenge, and it was a fun challenge to have.
Excellent work, Kazuto. I'll have my team analyze this immediately.
Bringing Leia into the show is amazing. Having a legacy character like her is very important that we treat with respect. And I think for Kaz to meet her in person at this time was very important, because the evidence that they found at this mining station, that is a huge clue that the First Order is doing some bad things.
All right, Skywalkers, it's time for Star Wars Resistance. Because recently there has been lots of Star Wars Resistance news. StarWars.com just announced that there will be a season 2 in the fall of 2019. And then we just got a mid-season trailer, which we'll talk about in just a bit. So the mid-season begins on the Disney Channel on Sunday, January 13th, which as of recording, it's tomorrow.
All right, now let's catch everyone up to speed with the last 2 Resistance episodes, Secrets and Holograms and Station Theta Black. So first, let's start with Secrets and Holograms, which was the 10th episode, airing December the 2nd, 2018.
Tora, is everything okay?
Great. Completely fine, Father. I really love hanging out in my room, alone, by myself.
It's getting dangerous out there, Tora. Far more dangerous than it ever has been. I'm not just talking about pirates.
I know who you're talking about. Ever since they started coming around, you've changed. You've been way too protective of me. I mean, I'm an ace pilot. I've battled pirates and marauders and...
The First Order are far worse than any pirate.
Now, this episode centers around Tora Doza's boredom, since her dad, Captain Doza, keeps her safely guarded in her room in Doza's tower. But as soon as Kaz enters the picture, you just know a slapstick adventure is not far behind. Meanwhile, Captain Doza is caving in fast to the First Order's proposal of protecting the Colossus from the constant pirate attacks. And as we're finding out, they just want to use it as a base for the attacks we see later in The Force Awakens.
All right. Now, for me, this was a very fun episode with a lot of Saturday morning cartoon slapsticky moments.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked for this kind of an episode. It'll really get the kids laughing.
Yes.
Because they were fun.
Mm-hmm. The opening of the episode is not this image of the station, of the Colossus. It's actually a video game. And I'm going, wait, is this the right thing? Am I on Star Wars Resistance?
Yeah, I thought it was a Disney Channel
commercial
promo.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, wait, is this right? Oh, it is right. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I thought the opening was actually pretty fun. Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the best moments for me was when Kaz and Tora, they're trying to get back to Tora's room because Tora was told not to leave her room, and they go out on this adventure, but on their way back, they fall into not a trash compactor, but a trash incinerator. And I thought this was a new twist. I love that there was a trash compactor in Star Wars. The fact that they brought it back for The Force Awakens, I thought, that's a little fan servicey there. I don't want to run this joke into the ground.
Right.
But when it became a trash incinerator, I thought, okay, this is a fun new twist.
Great. Where are we? This is a trash compactor.
No! It's a trash incinerator.
Incinerator?
Relax. Today's the 3rd day of the 2nd cycle, right?
No, actually, it's the third cycle. That's not good.
And it kind of upped the ante because it had laser beams of fire going at them like a video game.
Yeah, and the laser beams were lighting the trash on fire, and is this the end of Tora and Kaz? But no, because they're using all the skills that they had gotten while playing the game Flight Simulator Squadron to avoid the lasers. So they're jumping and twisting because the video game is one of these, what do you call it? Like a...
Oh, it's like Star Wars Connect. It's like Connect.
Yes.
So like it
so you're gonna move your
tracks
body,
the motion of your body, and that's what moves your ship on the screen.
So you aren't just moving your thumbs; you're moving your whole body. So they're using the moves they had learned while playing Flight
Simulator
Squadron to get out of the way of these lasers. I thought that was a good callback.
I agree. That was cute.
And now one other thing I want to keep pointing out is that we're still seeing this Echo-based trooper in the background. Now, I brought him up every single Flyby episode, and he's got to come full circle at some point. He's just always there. Every single time we see Kaz out in the Colossus, you see that Echo-based trooper. What is he up to?
There's also a woman as well, woman trooper, something in the background that she keeps showing up too. So I keep on seeing her. I don't think they're gonna amount to anything. I think they're just characters that have populated the station.
You know what? I think you're exactly right on that. And we're also seeing the OP Pit janitor. He's still back there cleaning those same hallways with his big Stanley steamer.
Oh yeah.
So don't tell me he's not up to something too. Am I just reading too much into these background animation models?
Yes. But that's okay. That's okay.
You know what? That's what makes this series really fun.
It does. Well, speaking of making the series fun, I know there was a lot of fun creatures in this episode, some classic creatures. So Richard, can you tell us what you found?
We saw a lot of classic creatures, but we didn't really see them. I mean that we saw the space slug from The Empire Strikes Back in the video game, the Flight Simulator Squadron video game. He was one of the creatures that
popped out of the top of the screen.
Yeah.
That they had to avoid.
Right.
Yeah, I know. I loved that.
One of these 64-bit renderings.
Uh-huh. So cute.
I know we chuckled very heartily when we saw that. And it was just the top half of the creature like we just seen in The Empire Strikes Back, and I want to see the lower half. What does the rest of this creature look like?
Okay, you know what that reminded me of though?
What?
When I was little and before I knew about Star Wars, I had an Empire Strikes Back pop-up book.
Oh, I've got that, yeah.
And I didn't know what it was, but my favorite page, and I remember this distinctly, was the space slug. And so you open it, it's like the asteroid field, and then you pulled out a tab and the space slug comes out of the asteroid, and it was the coolest pop-up moment thing ever. And that's like the only page I remember. But when I actually saw The Empire Strikes Back several years later, I was reminded of that pop-up book. Isn't that funny?
So you want to go up to the screen and pull a tab that wasn't there?
Yes. I thought that.
Now, we also see a toy Tauntaun and Puffer Pig in Tora's room.
Yes.
And there was even a plush Ewok with a green hood. Now, this is a callback to the 1986 animated Ewoks cartoon series.
Really?
The second season.
Oh, is there like a green hooded Ewok?
Yes. In the first season, Wicket had a orangish hood, but the second season, he had a green hood.
Ooh, he upgraded.
Yeah, this is like a deep cut.
Aww.
So when I looked at that, I thought, oh, that is someone who appreciates the 1980s Star Wars animated cartoon series.
Nice.
Good for them.
Now, what else do we see in Tora's room?
We saw a callback to E.T.
Oh,
that's when
really?
the droid 4D came in, and Kaz is hiding on the bed amongst all these stuffed animals, like E.T. did in the film when he's hiding in plain sight.
Oh, okay. I didn't quite remember that, but
because he's wearing that bright green jacket, so
I know
he blends in with all those other brightly colored toys.
That's awesome.
Just a hilarious shot.
Let's actually get into Bucket's list from StarWars.com. Now, we brought up a few of these that we found fun, and one of them is talking about this game that Tora and Kaz play, Flight Simulator Squadron. Now, this is meant to be a mix between Asteroids and Dance Dance Revolution.
That was the name of that game I could not think of, Dance Dance Revolution.
Okay.
But you had a better callback with Star Wars Connect.
Yeah, I'm like, I kind of see Dance Dance Revolution, but the only thing about that, they weren't on like any pads jumping around.
They weren't dancing.
It was definitely more like Star Wars Connect. I mean, in that game, you get to be, not a bantha, what's the big beast that has the claws in Return of the Jedi?
Rancor.
You get to be a Rancor and you get to rampage a village and as it like tracks your movements. So like when you lift your hands, his Rancor hands go up and you can like crush people and eat them. So like you can like take your hand and put it towards your face and like you eat a person. It's awesome.
I recall you working out a lot of frustration while playing that game.
Oh my God. It's like the best ever. Star Wars Connect, people. Star Wars Connect.
Now, there's something else that Bucket's List had pointed out, and this answered a huge question. And we kept seeing Kylo Ren's shuttle, his command shuttle, approaching the Colossus, but we never saw Kylo Ren. It wasn't Kylo Ren's ship. It was Commander Pyre's ship.
Okay.
It's the same First Order Upsilon class shuttle model.
Okay.
As Kylo's ship. That's the ship with the big bat wings.
Right.
And
looks so cool.
Yeah. Am I the only one that got confused when we saw his ship? Because we'd only associated this with Kylo Ren.
Right. But it wasn't Kylo Ren because they didn't have the music behind it going dun 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 dun.
Very true. And plus they would then cut to Commander Pyre, so I think they were hoping we'd put two and two together. However, but when you have
an
association,
yeah,
it just left everything hanging there. So I'm glad that answered that question.
Yeah, that's very good that they put that in Bucket's List.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so questions for this episode.
We saw an Imperial captain uniform hanging in Captain Doze's closet.
Yes.
Ooh.
What do you
right
think?
here, man.
What do you think?
I think he was once
Excellent
part of the
work,
Empire.
Kazuda.
Okay.
I'll have my
But
team
what does that
analyze
mean?
this immediately.
And it
Based
means
on
now
your
that
reports, we've
they
calculated a
are
possible
teasing
flight path through the
his
unknown
involvement,
regions
and
that
it
could
will
lead to a
pay off
First Order
later on.
outpost.
Because some
Really?
of the First
What kind of
Order
outpost?
came
That's what I'm going to find out.
Imperial Navy.
Well, yeah,
Like when we see Hux in The Last Jedi freaking out, you see all those older commanders looking at him going, wow, Vader or Palpatine never would have put up with all this.
Right.
So they're used to a whole different kind of regime.
Right. A different kind of strictness level, I guess.
Yeah,
or something.
and seeing Hux freaking out, like, oh, yeah, no, wouldn't have gone over well.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see Captain Doze's a flashback maybe about his involvement in the Empire, and maybe we'd even seen him in one of the films.
Okay.
Like they had gone back and retconned Yularen from the Clone Wars.
Okay.
And that he was in A New Hope sitting around the conference table when Tarkin and Vader had entered the room and Vader strangled Mahdi.
Uh-huh.
There was Yularen sitting over there. You can pick him out of a crowd because he's wearing a white tunic.
Okay.
So I think we're going to get a little bit more on this character and maybe have him be part of the films.
Okay. All right. Did you have any other questions about this episode?
Well, I didn't have any more questions, but Tora had a question at the end of the episode when she says, "Who are you really, Kazuda?" So she knows that there's more to Kaz.
Right. Plus, I mean, he's a really bad liar. So it's not hard to see past his facade and the way he's been sneaking around. So, and she's a smart girl.
Yeah. So we're going to get a whole new level come this next part of the first season.
Yes.
Yeah. More going on. Now, speaking of more, let's get into Station Theta Black, which is the 11th episode, which aired December the 9th, 2018.
This is a big station, Poe. We're gonna get lost.
You worry too much. Worse things could happen.
Don't tell me.
Worse things just happened. The First Order's here.
Hangars are all empty, Captain Phasma. Perhaps the intruders already left.
No. There are life signs moving to the upper levels.
Probably just scavengers, Captain.
I have no interest in your theories. Scour the upper floors. Find them. Spread out the explosives. I want this station completely destroyed.
What are they doing with all of those explosives?
You read it yourself. This place is slated for demolition. They're trying to get rid of any evidence of what they're doing down here. Now we have to find out what's going on.
All right, Station Theta Black. Kaz and Poe are sent by General Leia to do recon on an abandoned First Order base, which has been mining deadlinite from the asteroids to build blasters. As usual, things don't go as planned, and Poe and Kaz, plus BB-8 and CB-23, come face to face with Captain Phasma and her troops.
All right, so far, I think this is one of the best episodes
Yes.
of the first half of this first season. Lots of great action, lots and tons of great animation.
Mm-hmm.
I think, let's just say that this is the best animated episode of the whole series.
I could see that, though. Well, and what's interesting is it's one of our favorite episodes, and it has a lot of people that we know. So, Poe, General Leia, BB-8, all three of those. Oh, and even Captain Phasma. So, these are all characters from the movies, and we only have Kaz and CB-23 that are from this new series.
And I love to see the film characters in this show. It really ties everything together.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to point out that Carolyn Hennessy does a fantastic job in voicing Leia.
Excellent work, Kasuda. I'll have my team analyze this immediately. Based on your reports, we've calculated a possible flight path through the unknown regions that could lead to a First Order outpost.
Yep. I'm very glad that they had recast her.
They had to recast her.
Yes.
After that last debacle.
Fiasco.
Yeah. Over some really bad choices from the last actress.
Yeah.
But you know what? It all turned out for the best, because if you had said this was Carrie Fisher, I would have said, well, of course it is. She's that perfect for this role.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's another character I'm just hoping we're going to see in this next half of season. Now, if they do not bring back FN 2187, aka Finn, they're going to miss out on a big opportunity.
Now, why do you say that? Because I think his story really begins in The Force Awakens.
But does it really begin in the offshoot book that took place before The Force Awakens? So we had seen a prequel to The Force Awakens with Finn's character.
Right.
So why not incorporate him into this show? Right now, he's shooting episode 9. He's doing a lot of looping for that film. So let's give him a couple of lines. We don't need to see him without his helmet, but as long as someone else refers to a trooper as FN 2187, we're all going to know who that is.
Okay.
And if we hear Finn's voice, that will be perfect. And why not? Why not hear from this trooper? We see other troopers. Why not Finn?
How would you incorporate him?
He's on patrol. We see a lot more of the First Order in this next half season. So, a perfect place for him to fit in.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we can see a little bit more character development, that he's just really not on board with the tyrannical nature of the First Order. So when we see him in The Force Awakens, it all ties together.
Right. Okay, but honestly, I'm going to kind of push back on that, because I don't think we will see him, because I believe the book was his training, and one of his first missions is The Force Awakens, where he was put out into the world as one of his first missions.
All right, so why not have a scene where you see the troopers training?
That would be cool, but I just don't think it will apply to the story.
Well, just like in the Clone Wars episode Cadets, we saw the clone troopers training. So maybe Phasma is checking up on her latest batch of troopers.
That could be. All right.
Yeah, so I believe it's going to be a huge missed opportunity if they do not do this.
Okay. All right, so do you have a favorite moment from Station Theta Black?
That one shot where Poe and Kaz are escaping from Station Theta Black as it's exploding.
So they're in the ships.
They're in the X-Wings flying away from this big ball of fire, kind of like the Millennium Falcon in Return of the Jedi as it's escaping from the Death Star.
Right.
It had one of those shots, and it was just so beautifully animated. That's one of those cells you want to just print and hang up on your wall.
Oh, nice.
And there was a great Attack of the Clones moment when Kaz attaches his ship to the back of an asteroid the way Obi-Wan did to hide from Jango Fett.
Okay.
So Kaz was using the asteroid as a shield from the explosion.
Right.
And to me, it called back Obi-Wan.
Okay. All right. Well, I had a moment, and that is anything with BB-8. And when Poe and Kaz met again in this episode, BB-8 and CB-23 also got to see each other again. And they started catching up because they hadn't seen each other in a while. So they were like, BB-BB-B? BB-BB-B. And then Poe called them love droids. And I loved it. And they're my new ship. So what would we call that? BB-23? CBBBB?
CBBBB 23-8.
CBBB.
CBBB.
I love CBBB.
All right, there you go.
Oh my God, it's a ship, CBBB. Okay.
And well, you know what? Someone else making a reappearance in this episode is the character Jace Rockland, voiced by Elijah Wood.
Yay.
He was seen in the episode Fuel for the Fire, and he's back as the angsty teenager who's so mad at Kaz for
blowing up his ship.
Yeah, it's like, well, no, Jace, you destroyed your own ship.
Yeah,
why are you still mad at me?
Yeah.
It's because of your recklessness that your ship got destroyed. So be off.
Uh-huh.
Okay? Go spend some time with yourself and think this through.
I know. Now, I wish, honestly, it's funny because right now I am actually reading and watching all the, what is it? The Twin Towers, all those movies.
Harry Potter.
Not Harry Potter. No. Return of the King. Twin Towers.
It's called Jedi.
It's called The Rings. The Ring. Lord of the Rings.
Oh, The Ring. Great horror movie. Great horror film.
I'm watching all the Lord of the Rings movies because I've only ever seen the first one, and I just want to see what's up. I want to get up on my pop culture, so I'm watching them. And Elijah Wood, of course, is the main character, and but unfortunately, his voice is not very iconic. So even with Jace Rockland, like I'm not really hearing Elijah. What it's a voice. I don't know. His voice is just very normal.
Yeah, he doesn't have one of those Ewan McGregor type of voices where you hear his voice like, oh, come on.
That's him. Yeah, exactly. So, but it's funny because now there's a link to what I'm currently watching to Star Wars Resistance.
All right, now let's go to what Bucket's List had from StarWars.com.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So can I tell you one of them?
Yes.
Okay. So in this episode, Kaz frets that he and Poe may be sitting ducks.
Love that line.
Okay, but that's not the first mention of ducks in Star Wars.
No, far from the first.
So Captain Panaka worries about Queen Amidala's ship being a sitting duck as it runs the Naboo blockade in The Phantom Menace.
We're losing droids fast.
We can't get the shield generator fixed. We'll be sitting ducks.
And Richard, but there was even something before that.
Yes.
What was it?
Well, let's go back to 1976. In the original novelization to Star Wars, Obi-Wan described to Luke that even a duck might be taught how to swim. And Luke responded, What's a duck? I recall reading that.
Me too.
It's like, what? Did he just refer to a duck?
Yeah.
So apparently there are ducks in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, I mean,
well, there's horses in the Ewok movies.
Oh,
so why can't there be ducks?
I guess
there's
so.
humans in Star Wars all over the place. So why can't there be ducks?
I love it.
That brought a big smile to my face when I heard that line.
Yeah, I love it. All right, so there is another mineral here that they talk about, which is deadlinite, and this is what is being mined from the asteroids. Now, this was not the first time deadlinite was mentioned either. It first appeared in the 2015 Marvel Comics miniseries Chewbacca in the Beetle Caverns of Andelm 4.
I think we checked out that series around that issue. All right, so this is a great mid-season cliffhanger that gave us characters from the films and lots of great animation and a way to really hook you into the next season. Because if we had ended with one of the previous episodes where it was just too silly and slapsticky, I don't think many people would be returning the way they would after seeing this episode.
Right. Well, so that actually brings up the mid-season trailer.
Oh my goodness.
Which just came out this week. And honestly, I mean, you guys know, I haven't been too into this series. And this mid-season trailer actually piqued my interest again, which is one of the reasons why we're actually talking about this on this episode of Skywalking.
Yeah, this trailer really turned the corner for us.
Yeah, so I think it's time. Let's get into it. The Resistance mid-season trailer.
That is the 4th TIE fighter to arrive here this week. You have such a tremendous interest in the First Order. Now that they are increasing their security presence on the Colossus, you must be thrilled.
These guys aren't security. They're stormtroopers, and stormtroopers are only for one thing.
Looks like there was a system here, but there's no star.
Those planetoids. What could have done that?
Pirates, scramble the aces!
You need troops to protect your station, not racers.
First Order will provide all aerial security.
All racers are officially grounded.
Are you serious? We need a plan.
They could be preparing for war. That's why they want this station.
All remaining systems will bow to the First Order, and will remember this as the last day of the Republic!
We are the Resistance now. And we're taking back the Colossus.
Hit it, Cal!
Hey, frowny faces!
After her! Kaz, I'd fight alongside you any day.
That is a truly amazing plan!
Now, I love a story where the little folk reclaim their land from the formidable foe. That's what's happening here, that the First Order had taken over the Colossus because Captain Doza had caved in, and the First Order, making false promises, well, they take over and implement their own rules and restrictions and lockdowns. And well, we see a lot of the characters being hauled off in handcuffs because that's what they do.
Especially Tam, too. Tam.
Yeah.
Is going to have quite a journey, I think.
Yeah, and we see Yanni being hauled away.
Wait, which one's Yanni?
The Godel character.
Oh, okay.
Voiced by Bobby Moynihan.
Right.
So, you know, this next half season is going to be very, very dark.
And intense. Yeah, even for the trailer, the music is darker and more intense than some of this little fun, little Mickey Mousing music we've been hearing throughout the episodes. So, yeah, I'm excited. And it looks like, as predicted in the first season, the First Order will be taking over the Colossus and grounding all the Ace pilots. So now the Ace pilots are going to have nothing to do but fight back and rebel.
They're going to revolt.
Yeah.
Now, this is taking place during The Force Awakens because we see Hux's Third Reich speech.
Yes.
Bow to the First Order, and will remember this as the last day of the Republic.
Or we hear it.
You know, we also see the hologram,
right?
Because Kaz is watching what the stormtroopers are watching, and I'm sure this is going to be telecast throughout the galaxy. So they're seeing it as it happens.
Which is cool. And this is exactly what Justin Ridge was hinting at during the Star Wars Resistance Roundtable we attended back in September. So Justin actually, his quote was, "We can say that Star Wars Resistance begins 6 months before The Force Awakens, and we definitely have a little overlap with the movie."
Now, I'm surprised this is happening this early.
Yeah.
I thought they would go at least 2 seasons before they started overlapping into the film, but as we can see, it's happening right now, and I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I mean, that's one of the moments that brought me into the second season. from the trailer. It's definitely.
And I got very excited when I heard Hux's speech
Yeah.
in this trailer.
Well, what's interesting about this is usually these mid-season trailers that we've seen, at least for Star Wars Rebels, really 90% of what you see in the trailer is going to be in the first and second episodes you see in the mid-season. So if Hux's speech is actually happening in these first 2 episodes, like, wow, that's a lot more overlap than I thought. But I guess we'll find out. I mean, this could be the last 2 episodes of the whole season, but you never know.
Well, I think you're right. They're going to start this next half season with Hux's speech.
Okay.
And that's going to cement our timeline. And it's going to get very dark very soon, which is a little troubling because they want to keep this for the younger viewers, for the 6 to 8-year-olds.
Right.
But yet they want to still grab the older viewers. So they're going to have a hard time trying to appease both.
Right. Yeah, you really have to hone your audience because, I mean, as we know, working with kids, you can't play with the 2-year-olds and the 10-year-olds at the same time and appease them. It just doesn't happen.
Now, if you want to get the older fans on board, it needs to be taken a little bit more seriously. And if they want the silly and funny stuff, then roll out Star Wars Detours. That was nothing but slapsticky comedy. And you didn't take it seriously because it was Star Wars adjacent.
Oh, yeah.
And to straddle...
Like the Lego shows.
In the Lego, exactly. The Lego shows, yeah. To straddle the age bracket they appear to be striving for, that's not going to work.
Yeah, they need to pick the age bracket.
Fantatrax had just run a story where executive producer Justin Ridge had spoken to Cinema Blend and said this: I think the show is fun because we're kind of giving a little more of a lighthearted tone, because I think we definitely want younger audiences to really be into the show, but we definitely don't want to exclude the older fans. We want to stay true to Star Wars and what has come before us. So even though it's lighter in tone, it has a little more comedy, we definitely have a lot in store that I think older fans are really going to enjoy.
Well, from this, it sounds like they are going to try to straddle that line, Richard.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see if it's going to work.
So I you know what? Once again, I'm going to stay optimistic.
Yes.
However, this does not make me feel any better.
So there was a lot of interesting things we saw in this trailer, and let's bring up a few of the things that piqued our interest as we were watching it and pausing it and watching it and pausing it. So one of the things I saw that I loved, of course, was a CBBB moment, and that is BB-8 and CB-23 were flying around each other in space like Wally and Eve. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, that's
so cute.
that's what I went to too, the Wally and Eve moment, and that was beautiful.
Oh, I love that. All right, and another thing that I noticed in this trailer, and we saw them twice, were the Children from Tahar kids. You know, the episode Children from Tahar where we had Kel and Isla, and they were, you know, like running from the First Order, right? They were, and the First Order was trying to find them. Well, they are back along with the Space Turtles, the Chelidai. So I'm glad to see that Star Wars Resistance is revisiting story points from the first season, because I remember when we saw that episode, we're like, okay, now Star Wars Resistance is going to get more interesting. And then they never like revisited the kids.
Well, because they made a point that the First Order had to get those kids back.
Right.
But they never said why. And at the end of the episode, they left it with a cliffhanger, and we thought, oh, this next episode is going to be riveting.
Yep.
But the next episode had nothing to do with the Children from Tahar.
No. So I'm very glad that we are going to get an update on them.
Yeah. I don't want these to be standalone episodes, especially with a cliffhanger. That works against itself. It can't be a standalone episode if you're going to leave a major cliffhanger like the First Order wants these kids. Okay, bye. No.
All right, and also I noticed a couple times in this mid-season trailer, we saw this big sea creature, like a gigantic one underwater, and then later we see this big giant eye above the water looking at Niku. So I'm wondering if this is going to be a friendly sea creature or a bad sea creature. But then Richard, we saw some of the notes for the next episode coming up tomorrow. And I guess we're going to see this big sea creature on January 13th.
Yeah, this was a callback to what we'd seen in the films, like in The Phantom Menace, when Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Jar Jar were in the bungo, and the power goes out, and when the lights come back on, outside the windows, there's the big eye.
Yeah.
And plus, we see that in Solo.
Yeah, I was going to say.
In the Maw.
Uh-huh.
So it's a good theme they're running on, and you can't go wrong with an underwater sea monster.
Right, and I'm also thinking of Star Wars Clone Wars. Remember that big creature?
The Zillo Beast.
The Zillo Beast.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, you can't go wrong with a big creature. We love them. Oh, and then one thing I noticed towards the end of this mid-season trailer, Kaz has different hair. His hair is like, what? Hot callus, remember? Although he's not quite hot Kaz, in my opinion. But he has different hair, so you know that things are getting serious.
And that always shows a stretch of time.
A stretch of time and a character arc, really. Like a character change or growth.
When you know their hair is longer or just different, we've gone through a big span of time.
Yeah.
Which as we know, the first half of the first season was 6 months before The Force Awakens. So I guess this is 6 months after Station Theta Black.
Ooh.
Because if they're now in The Force Awakens.
Right.
Oh, okay. So now we got a good idea of where this is going.
So overall, did this mid-season trailer, what did it make you feel or think?
Oh, very excited. Very excited, but like I was saying before, it's going to be troublesome if they're trying to straddle the line and keeping both age brackets happy. Because when you're trying to please everybody, you please nobody.
That's true. Okay. Yeah, I mean, for me, it looks like they're going more towards the older age bracket, like us, because really, it looks like there's going to be a lot more action and fighting and actually Star Wars in the second half of season 1. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm hoping that it lives up to my expectations with this trailer.
Right. And as long as it takes all the Saturday morning cartoon moments out, then I think you're going to start to appeal to some of the older fans.
Right.
Because we've been talking to some of the older fans, and they have not even heard of this show or watched it.
Or they watched a couple episodes and were like, meh, and haven't really returned. So
yeah, and that's not a good sign.
And honestly, had we not been doing the flybys, I would have been one of those who hadn't really watched it or kept up with it.
Oh, I doubt that. We would have watched it.
You would have, definitely. But I would have checked out. If I not living with you, I would have checked out. But that's just me. That's just me. But now this is bringing me back in. So I'm very glad. And mid-season trailer, you did your job.
Yeah. So I'm going to stay optimistic, and I'm very excited about this.
Yeah. Okay.
Because we are going to see a lot more action and a lot more stories that delve into the continuity of the films.
And just so you Skywalkers know, we're not going to be doing the Resistance Flyby, but every once in a while, if there's something we'd like to talk about within these episodes, we're going to be putting them in a segment in our regular Skywalking Through Neverland show. So that's our plan moving forward.
Come on, Resistance. Don't let us down. All right, well, that wraps up episode 235 of Skywalking Through Neverland. We'd like to thank Bobby Porter for sharing all of his stories. Now, watch out for the documentary where he is featured called Making Apes, the Artist Who Changed Film. And we'd like to thank all the Skywalkers for tuning in every week and watching over here on Facebook, you face huggers.
Now, if you would like more Skywalking Through Neverland in your life, check out skywalkingforce.com. It's where we plus up our content and offer extras just for you, like extra episodes, extra content. So be a part of the Skywalking Force at skywalkingforce.com. Also, if you'd like to support us in a different way, please share the show with a friend or click on the links to Pozu Shoes, Oppo Suits, or TeePublic on our website, skywalkingthrough.neverland.com. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. You can subscribe, youtube.com/skywalkingthrough Neverland.
where we just had uploaded the Star Wars Holiday Special 40th Anniversary panel that we recorded at LostCon.
Yeah, and Richard, you worked hard on editing that.
Took me 2 months.
You did.
But I had a lot of fun with it, and I can't wait for the Skywalkers to see it.
Now you can also find Skywalking Through Neverland at JediNews.co.uk and Bantha Tracks. And you can find us on social media. We are at Skywalking Pod for Twitter and Instagram. We also have our lovely Facebook group where you can have some great conversations and meet some great people. Just search Facebook for Skywalking Through Neverland group. And you can also email us, share@skywalkingthroughneverland.com.
And you can also leave us reviews over there at Apple Podcast or Stitcher. Always love to hear what you have to say.
Now stay tuned for some bloopers and other fun conversation right after these credits.
Now, always remember...
Neverland on Alderaan.
Some imagination, huh?
To our Skywalkers and Tweetwalkers, thanks for listening. Skywalking Through Neverland is created and produced by Richard and Sarah Woloski. Original music by Rob Dellinger. Creative consultant Mark Augushowitz. Technical advisor Peter Heitman. Facebook administrators Donald Wicks, Joey Pittman, and Norma Heitman.
Skywalking Through Neverland is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Any sounds, music, and clips played during this podcast are the property of their copyright holders. All original content is property of Skywalking Through Neverland, all rights reserved. Sorry, had to be said. Tell us
Should we answer the phone first?
No, that's fine.
It happens all the time. Take 17.
Okay. So we'll...
1, 2, 3, and...
So we'll reel off a couple of your films, and you...
Hey, boys and girls. This is Bobby Porter. I used to be an Ewok. I used to do all kinds of the 70s Disney movies that you've all long forgotten by now. And now I'm Skywalking Through Neverland. I used to be an Ewok. Now I'm an unemployed actor. And I'm Skywalking Through Neverland.
There you go.
I like it.
That's the one.
That'll work.
That's the one.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Wait, did you just click that?
55 more movies to go through.
Sure, no worries. Yeah, you're buying breakfast, right? Okay. Yeah.
All right, you know what? Let's do this last one here.
Okay. I think next we just need to go on for a run with him.
The park that I live across the street from was just recently burned out. I was evacuated a few weeks ago, and I found out yesterday it's back open. So you are welcome to come and run through a burned out park. It's really cool. It's really fun.
You know, Periscope it, and I'll watch it.
All right. You're going to come with me.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks.
Yeah.